What is going on, everybody? A little bit of an earlier stream today. Jake is unfortunately busy tonight, so we're rocking it now. But same format, same things as always. We're going through every single game on the Week 14 board, giving out the best bets that I have already locked in. Also, just giving you guys some thoughts on games that I don't have bets locked in. We'll definitely lock some bets in together on stream, and we'll talk about some touchdowns as well. You guys know the drill, so. Let me get a promo out as always, and we'll get right into it, boys. Thank you all for being here. What am I doing? Gotta get a quick tweet out. We're using Outlier as always on Wednesdays for the NFL regular season. If you want to try Outlier, click the link in the description, or if you're watching on X, right under the tweet, just posted a link for trying it out. One more tweet, and we're going to dive right in. We're going, again, every game on the board. And some touchdown looks for some games I like. Of course, props at this point come out a lot earlier now that we're 14 weeks into the season, but still not like a full prop menu, not a full touchdown menu. But we will finalize everything that we see, and there are some spots that I like, and then we'll be contingent as always on price. So let's get rocking. We had a killer week last week. All started with that amazing Thanksgiving. Now the Thanksgiving Square Fest is of course over, so we're going to be more responsible with some of our plays and some of our stuff. I mean, it ended up being great and working out, but let's kick things off. Cowboys Lions, and this is a game that's going to be a great one. Now, both of these teams obviously outside the playoff picture right now. Detroit dealing just with a lot of just general issues, some injuries. Overall, Terry Arnold, one of their better cornerbacks, young guy, is out with right shoulder surgery. We're seeing Brian Branch is questionable, tackle Taylor Decker questionable, Graham Glasgow questionable, a offensive lineman, limited practice on Monday. Of course, with a Thursday game, not a lot of time for that to all be made up there. Games tomorrow. High total 54.5. Very unsurprising, I think, considering how these offenses are and how these defenses are. With that being said, as we spoke about last week and for the last few weeks now, Dallas's defense definitely much better over the course of the back end of the season. Nowhere near that horrific defense that we knew and love. And also talking to injuries, quick pivot. We can't also forget that Mr. Amon-Ra St. Brown is questionable, spraining his ankle early in that loss to the Packers. Did not play. And seeing the good news is just day by day, if he can't suit up, of course, Jameson Williams is going to be the WR1. But that's a huge loss. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is a dog. Monty does his role. No Laporta and no Amon-Ra. This would be a really tough look for the Lions. And the total, I think, is actually a tick high because the Cowboys, just their run defense has been a lot better as of late. And the Lions, they love to pound the football. But I actually think that this total is honestly a tick high, but it isn't my favorite look in this one. But I do think 54.5, of course, is a key number. This 101, I'll put it onto the lean list. We'll add to the picks here at Profit X. We're seeing the best price. I want to see some of the line movement here quickly before I dive into what my best bet is in here. Did see a bit of a tick up, but we're looking at the under and all the money. So we have some plus 102s, some plus 103s, minus 105, of course, with the exchanges now. Profit and Novig, amazing platforms to utilize. If you guys aren't utilizing them, use promo code BetSmart and get started. But definitely think the under is a worthwhile look, but my best bet for Thursday Night Football is Dallas plus 3.5. I got that at minus 114 on Novig, and I'm seeing some 115 still with some good liquidity. There was great liquidity in the market, and actually, right now, too, Pinnacle, this is a great price as well. But I went with Dallas over plus 3.5 as one of my best bets for a number of reasons. I don't think I'm overbuying any hype from last week's win over the Chiefs. The Cowboys offense should be able to move the ball on this Detroit defense that has been really poor all season long. And of course, are now dealing with the injury to Terry and Arnold. And while the Lions now, especially if ASB does not suit up, Jameson Williams is definitely not a proven WR1. And yeah, we're going to see a lot of Gibbs and a lot of Monty, hence why I also liking the under here. But that's not enough firepower, I think, to compete with the Dallas team that is going to be able to get it however they want it in the air and also on the ground, despite Detroit being a pretty good run D and Dallas's run offense having some struggles over the last couple of weeks of the season. But the firepower of Pickens and Lamb, and of course, Dak leading the charge. You got Ferguson in the mix. I think the Cowboys team are actually more for real, and I think are really primed for a potential run down the stretch here. So I like Dallas plus a 3.5. Do you think this might be a good spot to glaze Dak Prescott and the Cowboys receiving core? Absolutely. And this goes to my touchdown, and it's not going to be anything out of the ordinary here. I love CeeDee Lamb again. I'll have to confirm the pricing here because it's just like a kind of like a ball knowledge thought, but I'm thinking at the prices of touchdown, they might not be too great. Plus the 26 Novik is actually solid for the market, but I will see how this goes. But I think that this is a, like you just called it out there, AAC. I think that's spot on. I think we see another situation where Dallas is just absolutely doing how well they've done against Kansas City's defense, which we know is, of course, like a better defense than Detroit's, and just still a good unit despite them not being like this lockdown amazing unit that we have come to see over the last couple of years. But I think that this is a Pickens game. This is the Lamb game. This is a Cowboys offense continuing to do what they do game. And as we know, the Lions have struggled against the Packers specifically in the last couple of seasons. But all in all, I don't think that this I don't think it's like a Packers specific only. The Lions, of course, are not juggernauts by any means, and the injuries are really mounting up big time for them. So I think that Dallas can really get after them. I do like a CeeDee Lamb touchdown, and my best bet is Dallas plus 3.5. At 115, it's a good price. Even at the 105, 3.5, 115 is actually still like a better price in market, even though you are getting plus money here. Of course, 3 being that key number, the hook for getting rid of any pushes here. And this isn't like a situation where you're like buying a point or anything like that. Like this is, from an expected value standpoint, a higher EV play, and depending on where you look at your EV calcs, is probably around like a 1% ish EV, probably a little bit lower. But when you come to game lines, that's going to be like the top of what you're getting here. As you see, like right now at a Poly Market, actually it's minus 113, which is 1.6%. Take away 2 cents of juice right there. So I actually think the Cowboys are not just great at 3.5. I also think they're definitely live even in Detroit. Fast track, of course. Both these teams, do very well in these kind of environments. But all in all, I think Dallas is the team that is more for real at this point. It's tough to say. It kind of just sucks because Detroit's a good football team. Bad storm of injuries, some really great competition in the NFC. I think Dak and Co are primed for actually a potential upset W tomorrow. So Dallas plus 3.5. Don't mind any money lines, but a best bet on the board, Dallas plus 3.5 to kick us off on Thursday night. Now we got a bunch of buys this week, so I'm actually pretty close spread. So this is an interesting one. We're gonna go game by game as always. It's Steelers Ravens. Now this game has kind of been a bit interesting to me from like a market perspective, because when this was 6.5, I was definitely not expecting this to kind of go back to 5.5. I know that Lamar, actually, I think he did practice today, confirmed, or at least in a light fashion. Ankle questionable still, but if I read the reports correctly, or if I remember correctly, because I read them like 5 minutes ago, Lamar was like back out on the field, wasn't like full practice, but he should be good to go. And I mean, listen, look at Baltimore lately, obviously losing on Thanksgiving to the Bengals, beat the Jets, but they did not play well, beat the Browns, and like they did play, he played decently against Minnesota, did not really play well. Against Miami, I mean, they turned up there, but Lamar has not looked like himself. And the Ravens have been benefiting, except against Cincinnati there, with like their defense being fully healthy and things coming together for them a bit. But Pittsburgh, to me, like this is like the stereotypical, and I kind of talked about it last week. I did end up pulling trigger, though. Like Jake and I were in agreement that the Bills at -3 was probably a great look. I think Jake definitely ended up betting that, so he cashed in. I personally just stayed away. Where it's like the Steelers and the voodoo. Like we did have those 2 early Josh Allen turnovers, or at least the 1 early turnover. And that's the way that the Steelers end up making things happen. I mean, everyone, I'm sure at this point, I saw the stat on Twitter where the Aaron Rodgers and co have not completed a downfield pass in like, I think it was like a month or something like that, which is hilarious, honestly, like absolutely hilarious. All these short underneath stuff, of course, to try to run the football. But this is like the Mike Tomlin special potential for all the like potential forced turnovers, which again, you can't really like anticipate the Steelers when you look at the numbers. Like they are, which we can look at some of them right here. They are, I want to say, first in turnovers on defense, or maybe second here. Oh, the other second. Chicago is first. The 2 luck boxes there. Chicago's luck boxes have turned into W's because they can downfield pass a bit, which we'll talk about, though. Even Ben Johnson is saying that they're not happy with their downfield passing game, which, how could they be? There's definitely some missed ops there. So bringing this game down, of course, you have the divisional matchup conversation here. It's always going to come down to a Steelers and a Ravens game is always going to get that kind of attention. And then the situation between the Aaron Rodgers having, a absolutely like pretty bad season so far, and then the Ravens, who have had their poor moments this year, but all in all, especially when their defense has been healthy, they've been great, but we've yet to see the culmination of Lamar being healthy at the top of his game and the Ravens being healthy at the top of his game. And like the closest we got to that was really week 1 where they blew that game in Buffalo. But then week 2 when they dominated, as we know, a terrible Browns team. And then the wheels start to fall off with the injuries, not just to Lamar, but to like the entirety of the team. Kind of long-winded way here. I want to look at the total one more time, 42.5. So expecting this to be a defensive AFC North battle we know and love. I kind of think this total's a bit low. Honestly, I haven't bet it, and let me just make sure I didn't add the Cowboys to my slip. I'll do that right now because Cowboys plus 3.5. You guys just hopping in now is one of my best bets of the week. But I think that total's a bit low. I know that the Steelers' offense is like abysmal, and then them scoring points is going to be a very difficult task. We saw it live in Buffalo last weekend where they could really not move the football at all. And again, we all know the inability to pass the ball down the field here. But if Lamar is right, this Steelers defense, barring like turnovers, like looking at again full season metrics, doing well in the red zone, which is always great. Terrible on third down, terrible allowing first downs, terrible in the passing game, pretty bad in the rushing game as well. Living and dying by turnovers, getting some sacks, sack turnovers, fumbles, defensive scores, etc. here. So this is the game where I am just interested to see how things shake up in the market with Lamar. Strong lean to the under 42.5 for me, but we'll be touching upon this game, of course, a lot more Sunday morning on our stream when we have a lot more information here, because this is one where I don't have a strong, real feel, and the number is interesting to me. And AFC North is definitely where we can see a lot of craziness, as we've seen many, many times before. But from a touchdown, we can quickly look at some props here. What I'm going to do is just get touchdown going, and we'll look at games individually. We'll filter to over, and let's see what we're looking for here. The Steelers Ravens. See some odds here. Derrick Henry 156. DK Metcalf's always interesting because while they don't move the ball down the field, he is somebody who at least is getting his touches like on the short and intermediate kind of routes. Jaylen Warren at 185 is honestly very interesting as it sits right now, because like he does get so many touches and he is used in, of course, as a running back, but also in the passing game so often. Definitely not in on anything Lamar. Likely this high is pretty interesting, though we did have just like that amazing matchup against Cincinnati where he did capitalize. Say Flowers doesn't score a lot. So early indication of touchdown odds, I'm leaning Metcalf, leaning Warren, leaning Metcalf. And from a Ravens perspective, I think from a price as it is right now, that's probably about it. Just strong leans here if there's anything I love. And we also liked CD, so I'll add him here as well. Reminder for everybody, I'm always streaming on Thursdays right before kickoff at 7 o'clock. So we'll definitely be using all the boosts, using all the plays, using all the promos, finalizing plays, etc. So make sure you're ready for tomorrow's stream also. But let's keep ripping here. We're going to go through all the games. No Jake, so just one-man show, and feel free to leave your comments here. I'll be answering every question, any comments, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts on these games as well. But Bengals, Bills. This one's also moved. This was 6. As we see here, went down to 5.5 into that kind of like no man's land, dead zone. One of my colleagues, Johnny V, loves to call this the Royal Mint situation. I think it only applies for home teams though, but the 5.5 spread is in that like weird dead number. Of course, 4 is relatively key with the way that NFL score shaped up. 6 obviously key, 7 of course key. This is kind of the interesting thing for me. I think that this is giving way, way, way too much credit to the Bengals for their Thanksgiving W. I really do. This 120 at Novig at 4.5, I actually like a lot. Not going to lock this one in as a best bet because I am curious to see how the market does unfold here. But like yesterday, put a spanking on Baltimore. Joe Burrow, obviously back. Another week of no Trey Hendrickson practicing. The wide receiver core is back and healthy fully. T. Higgins, is back. Jamar Chase served the suspension. So they're like finally going to be the Bengals we were hoping to see offensively. Chase Brown, Joe Burrow, Jamar, and T. And then you have a decimated Bills injury report. Tackle Spencer Brown, questionable. Joey Bosa, questionable. Terrell Bernard, linebacker, questionable. Deion Dawkins, questionable. Did practice in limited capacity, but he's a concussion, so there's a whole protocol there. Kincaid, will be limited in walkthroughs today on Wednesday, so that's not necessarily great. They put Curtis Samuel relatively recently on the IR as well. Taylor Rapp, Josh Palmer also. That's why they've been doing so many things with elevating guys from the practice squad up and down. Though Nicole Hardman, one of those guys, is also out. Not like he really played a big crucial role here. Yes, the Bengals defense finally had their first game, or their holding, or she said their second game holding the Ravens to 14 points in a game where, again, Lamar was pretty awful, and overall the Ravens were just pretty awful. But I don't think that's going to happen against Buffalo and Josh Allen, especially in Buffalo, which they've been amazing in the Josh Allen era, especially specifically in the last like 2 or 3 years. Though a lot of those numbers are inflated, and I'm not talking about trends of 2 to 3 years because that's irrelevant for now. But some of those numbers were and are definitely inflated because if you look at some of the quarterbacks they played during that time, it wasn't Joe Burrow. They were playing backups and younger quarterbacks. But this number, I think, is just moved too much. Like, obviously Joe Burrow is great. Is it really a point now where like the Bengals are looking as good as like people would expect the Bengals to have looked if he was healthy all season long? Like, obviously there's no point in like real hypotheticals, but like say the Bengals didn't deal with the Burrow injury. Realistically, what is their record and what would the spread be in that game if the Bengals, and I know that records don't really indicate what the spreads are. I'm not saying that by any means, but like what would the record if this was like an 8-3 or an 8-4 Bengals team going into Buffalo, would we be seeing the 4.5? I think the answer honestly is still yes. And because it's come down from 6, of course I respect the market, but I do think this could bounce back up, especially if the Buffalo Bills injury report, especially on the O-line, does start to increase a bit. And then it's like, who's going to stop James Cook from the Bengals front? Like, he is their dominator. And yes, their issues for the Bengals have been with their defense against tight ends, and the Bills don't have or might not have Kincaid. And even though Kincaid is still kind of like a slot receiver, and like Dawson Knox, like, is he going to have like a game like likely had last week? Very unlikely, no pun intended. But I think that Buffalo at 4.5 is a great look, and I'm gonna, especially at the odds of 120, that's the cap that I bet it at. Haven't pulled trigger. It was on Novig, but I'm gonna put that in the bet slip as a lean. I do have some games that I love and some best bets, just haven't gotten to them just yet. So just kind of a little bit of a precursor for every game that we got so far. And let's look at some touchdowns here. Let's see what we're getting odds-wise in this Bengals-Bills game. T at 140. James Cook and Josh are in the 200 range. Like, I mean, listen, do I think both of them score? Like, absolutely. Am I betting those prices? Absolutely not. See some odds for Kincaid, so that's intriguing. Jamar at the minus 130. I mean, we'll see how these look closer to game time, but this is kind of like price independent right now because I'm not locking any of these bets in unless there is a really great price sticking out to me. But like, I do like Jamar. And there's a guy on this list. We scrolled past him already for touchdown odds. And like, just when I thought I was out, pull me back in meme. I know he only had, what was it, the one target or not 2 targets for that touchdown last week, Keon Coleman. And we can't even see because there are no like other props out for him right now. But Keon Coleman is their most capable red zone threat and still is their potential like deep ball threat. I know we missed those 2 games from playing, but again, this is the season in the games that he's played. He scored 4 touchdowns in those 10 of the games that he's played. And that comes from a higher volume of red zone targets, as we see, compared to the overall team targets. Like 0.6 a game is not high, but in the games he played, for only getting 3 targets or 4 in the red zone, he is capitalizing on those. And as we know, at this point, the Bills are a team that loves to run the football, and that is their bread and butter and their MO. But I think, again, if we're getting this price at 350 at Hard Rock, which is an outlier. If you had Hard Rock, I'd bet that right now. But at current market, other more widely available books, I can't say it's a full go. But I'll definitely be keeping my eye on Keon Coleman because on stream Sunday last week, if you guys remember, if you were there, Keon was like 5-1 and he popped up on the EV screen, but we passed. Bad idea because he did score. But this is a guy who, after week 1, was like plus 150, and even up until when he was really getting benched, was still showing like high EV, even with lower target share and the inability to really get anything going to score touchdowns. So 350, I think, is still like off of fair of what it should be. Because even if he's getting 2 targets a game, they could definitely be in the red zone against this Bengals team where maybe Buffalo, maybe James Cook does run the ball 25 times. Josh runs the ball 8 times. We saw Josh pick up the running slack. They put up a historic round game against Pittsburgh. And of course, Cincinnati versus Pittsburgh, you would expect that to be an easier matchup. But as we know in football, that's just not how things work. Keon still is that WR1 in the red zone, or I should say specifically in the end zone for end zone shots, because Khalil Shakir gets some great love in the red zone. We can just look at the numbers right here for red zone target share. Good, but Shakir, he's not getting as many end zone targets because red zone is 20 in. So he's getting a underneath throw on 1st and 10 from the 20. That's catching it at the 15, trying to, get some yards after the catch, make it an easier run for Josh, easier run for James. But when it's actually thrown into the end zone, it is the Keon show, though this overall target share is low because they just do this in the red zone. Jimmy, Cook, and Josh Allen. Sorry about that. Ty Johnson, he shows up on the EV screen often, and I love betting Ty Johnson. Touchdown, we've hit on him one time, missing him last week. He's utilized more than enough, especially when it comes to red zone overall here. On a team with, even though it's only 2 red zone targets all year and 5 red zone rush attempts, he actually has scored from outside as well. So always going to keep my eye on Ty, and let's just check the odds quickly here for him because he's a guy who flashed on the EV screen often because he was 850 last week. I think we got him at. So at this price, it's off, but we'll see how the market ends up maturing throughout the course of the week. And he does have, a couple games with scores. So very, very nice. Let's talk about the best game of the week, bar none. Clear your calendars, tell your girlfriends and wives you can't do anything on Sunday at 1:00 because you have to watch the Cleveland Browns host the Tennessee Titans. And you think I'm joking, but the reason why you have to watch is because Myles Garrett is breaking the sack record on Sunday. And in fact, before I even talk about the game, he needs 4, by the way. Before I even talk about the game, it's Wednesday, so I don't expect the odds to be up. But I am absolutely betting, if offered, let's get rid of touchdowns for now. Okay, it's not up. It will be up. We know it will be up. Actually, odds are going to be chalked probably. I mean, we're talking about 5 sacks. Yes, I am kidding, but at the same time, I'm not kidding. Is there ever a time to make a sprinkle like that? It is this week because of how bad the Tennessee Titans are. So we'll talk more about that on Stream Sunday, boys. So prepare yourselves to deploy some units and maybe use a boost on a sack prop, or even where a couple weeks ago in Shedur's first start, I had Shedeur INT in LA, even though we bet values, doesn't matter what legs are in the leg. We're leg agnostic. We're just trying to get value at any point we can. I don't care if Myles Garrett sacks minus 200 and I need a extra leg for a boost. Yeah, Myles Garrett sack will be in that lay and absolute ladder. And yes, you're going to say, Eric, that's just motivation, whatever. That's bad capping. That's not even the point. The point is when you even want to look at numbers, which is why the odds are going to stink. It's not just motivation. It's the fact that they're a team that is taking 4 sacks a game. This Titans team, their all offensive line is horrific. We've seen, I'm sure at this point, most of you guys have seen, but there was a clip last week of just showing how bad their first round pick, JC Latham, has been. Doing a pass blocking rep, or it might have been run blocking, but either way, it was just awful, completely whiffed. And now you play against the Browns and Myles Garrett, and the weather's supposed to be bad here. So yes, it's very possible that Cam Ward just doesn't throw really at all. I'm curious if props are out there. Just looking at touchdown for now because I'll just filter through there, but not showing Ward anytime. So let's just get rid of anytime for now and get a Ward prop here. And it might not be out yet because it's early. So there's no attempt prop. Not necessarily true. Okay. Attempts 31.5. So Ward, as we know, has been slinging it despite the lack of overall success for this team. Numbers so low because while it's not supposed to be as windy as it was in Cleveland last week, which ended up being not too bad, and those Purdy bets were an absolute massive sweat. If he's dropping back 31 times against the Browns, he is absolutely due to get sacked. Now, I know that Malik Collins, of course, unfortunately, after the season, was playing a really, really great football, and um, having those guys help Garrett get open is going to be helpful. But if you're double teaming him literally all game long, I don't think that's going to stop him from being able to get a couple of sacks here. Looking at some injury reports, Wessinger banged up, Wyatt Teller banged up. Um, but this game, and this speaks for everything right here, 33 and a half total. Why? Because the Browns offense sucks, and somehow the Titans offense is just as bad, if not worse. And these are the two of the worst offenses in all of football. And the Titans defense, now I bet Tennessee money line in LA last week. I didn't take the points in a serious bet. I was I was kind of joking with Jake, but one 3-leg money line lay of dogs. I'm gonna take that and have fun with it every week. I had the Titans as one of them, and after a good first drive, a little bit of scripting action, that was just chalked because Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen just did what they did and actually put up a great game against them. And not that that's saying much against the Titans here, but this offense is so horrific, and their defense is so horrific. While we know the Browns are one of the best defenses, the fact that Cleveland is laying 4.5 points here, I think is a bit crazy with Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. With that being said, can they absolutely win and cover this game? Yeah, they obviously absolutely can. Anything's possible. And though I actually think that there probably is some value in betting on Cleveland at this price, though there's probably some fours, even not at plus money. I would say there definitely are. Even some 3.5s at 109 is as low as you can get. I have this as a lean here, but I'm not laying over a touchdown with Shedeur Sanders because the defensive line for the Titans is their best part of their team, and the Browns' offensive line that you saw just a second ago, Jack Conklin dealing with a concussion, DeJuan Jones has been out. It's been a makeshift unit that's not good in the first place. So Brown, or I should say, sack props for Garrett. Can't wait till they open up. Give me all of them. Browns, I lean, but I'm definitely not laying a margin with that team, though Tennessee's offense is so bad where this is a game that, from a spread perspective, I'm staying off, especially with the weather. Total 33.5 is hilarious. The only thing I would potentially do is sprinkle a touchdown because besides Judkins, which is probably the most likely guy to score, especially odds on, you can maybe find, again, Njoku is not like he's been scoring touchdowns, especially with the way the offense is. A 550 here. If you're a Hard Rock 750, I'd bet that right now. They're going to get some better odds on tutties. Fannin is a dog. This 350 DK actually looks good. I'm going to add Fannin, and I'm probably going to regret not having this locked in by the time we're circling back on stream Sunday. But yes, the total's so low, and you're going to have to, every touchdown bet's going to be lucky to a degree, but you're going to have to get lucky. But I think if you are trying to find some EV on touchdowns, you can, from one, the market, and two, just the fact that the total's so low, inflating some touchdown odds for everybody involved. So definitely would think about betting some of this that way for a game that is expected to have 33 points of offense output. And I'm curious to see what defensive touchdown lines end up looking like here because I could see both teams having an argument to be able to score if the odds dictate. Could be worth looking at. So I added the Cleveland as a lean. And yes, I do have some bets that I'm looking to lock in together. We just have not gotten to the games yet outside of Dallas plus 3.5 on Thursday. But Saints Bucks. NFC South, Buccaneers are a big favorite in Survivor this week. Home favorites 8.5. The Saints are abysmal, and I think that there was a lot of market love for Tyler Shough. I won't even say I think that there was. He was a favorite in that start against Atlanta off the bye, and then just 5.5 against Miami. Do cover, but if you watch that game, Shough was honestly awful. Very low total here, and the Buccaneers look like they're back to business after barely beating the Cardinals in a game where they had a Tristan Wirfs touchdown. Jacoby Brissett made a couple of critical errors, and I'm still not in on Baker Mayfield being fully healthy. I mean, he's definitely not fully healthy, but on being really this quarterback where I'm comfortable laying 8.5 points. Haven't bet it yet. Let's see if there's a 9 out there. Had at good odds. There's a 9.5 here at Hard Rock. That's the only book. Novik 116 is not bad. I'm going to add New Orleans plus 9.5 to this. Again, market ebbs and flows, buying low, selling high, all that. stereotypical conversation. Like that is true in the National Football League and the official market that is betting on the NFL. And I think we're actually be able to buy a little bit low on the Saints, or actually, it's more so I think that we could sell a little bit high on Tampa. Obviously, smoked against the Rams when Baker went out. Barely beat the Cardinals. We had Cardinals last week. ATS definitely a sweat, but got to the window. Bucky's back. It looks good, but shoulder is banged up, limited at walkthrough. Godwin, no information to click into there. We know the offensive line has still been banged up pretty badly for this Buccaneers team, but Lang winning by 10, Lang 9.5 points with Tampa Bay is not something I think I'd be interested in at this point. Smoked by Buffalo, lose outright to New England. Of course, these teams are better than the Saints. Yes, they did do that to New Orleans, but that's when Baker was fully healthy. And I can't stop not to be a hater here, but we can't ignore that Baker Mayfield for the last 7 weeks or so, 6 weeks really, it's been one of the worst quarterbacks in football. And I'm going to pull up the chart just to don't take my word for it. We'll look at the numbers here. I'll switch my screen in 1 second. But from an EPA per play plus CPOE composite since week 7, switch my screen in 1 second here. Baker Mayfield is in the dumps as one of the worst quarterbacks in football. I know Shook is also bad, very bad. So that's not the case here. Baker Mayfield 41st for quarterbacks with at least 50 plays. So that's enough to encapsulate everybody who's played recently. If we got rid of, Gabriel Wentz, he would still be down the dumps here, even with Davis Mills, though he's at least in the positives, though not by much. Baker's been so bad, and the Saints at this point, all they can do is play some spoiler, and I think this is a game where they absolutely can play some spoiler. So I like the Saints. Let's take a look at some touchdown odds here. Bucky at $1.20. I mean, he's a dog. Tez Johnson, this 375, 365, I love because while he is a very low volume guy and like Godwin is back, of course, Ibuka's doing Ibuka things, though he's been not really putting up numbers, but I think we all do know that at this point. That's a bit interesting. Olave 2-1, I love, and I'm just going to add that to the slip right now because I think that he's their best offensive player at this point, even with AK in the mix, who's been banged up. And it's not like the Buccaneers secondary is great by any means. Bailey, we hit a nice hit on him last week at like 525, I think it was. That was awesome. Make sure you're on stream Sunday. That's where we bet that together on Sunday. So people there lock that in and hit a 525 tutty. Devin Neal's interesting. We got to see on Kamara, but from just a first look perspective, it's very easily for me Olave at 2-1. We can look at his target share and just see what his. We know what it's been like here, but he's been scoring with Shuck under center, and he's just dominating the target share. He's just a dog. He's really just a good player. Rec yards are here, so we can even filter right here games with Tyler Shook. Not having massive outputs by any means, of course, except for this one against Carolina, but the target share, 9.7 a game. That is WR1. 2-1 from WR1 against the bad secondary. Yes, the total is pretty low. What is it at? Shouldn't have said that because I actually don't know what it is. It is low, 42.5. But similar to like that Browns game where it's like, who are the real options to score? And then you're giving me 2-1 in a 42.5 total for the WR1. I'm absolutely interested in based on what the odds will be, which we'll confirm on Sunday, but could be outright the second. First tutty. Yeah, Olave 11-1. I need to see prices at circa and if they're out as well. But this is a ready to target for first touchdown for this game. Olave. Dolphins, Jets. Miami rolling. Just talked about them, of course, picking up that W against the Saints. Not covering, though. Game got a little bit close in the end, but not really. The Jets doing the Jet things, and I called it out on stream again. What would the worst thing for the Jets be, realistically, at this point in 2025? Winning football games against other bad teams that are in the mix for higher draft picks. What did the Jets do? They win a football game that they probably should have lost for draft capital. Of course, players don't tank, coaches don't tank. So I'm not saying they should have tried to mail it in and fully tank. That's not what I'm saying. But realistically, what's better for them to lose? Absolutely. But in typical Jets fashion, when they're supposed to lose, they win. When they're supposed to win, which is
those times are, of course, few and far between. They lose football games. So we see by this great start to the season, jokingly here. But the Saints, excuse me, the Dolphins, 3 straight. Now laying 3 in New York. Pretty bad weather, I think, anticipated. Not like nothing like Cleveland weather, but not supposed to be Miami sunshine and rainbows by any means either. Injury reports here. The Dolphins, their defense, like they've been really a lot better in the back half. And let's pull up RBDSM quickly. Because yes, they're still like devoid of talent overall, but overall this defense has been playing much better here. We're on week 70 here. Week 70. We're filtered back to week 7 here. EPA per play at the top. Miami 11th in football. Not the toughest schedule, because I'll read it off here, not to flip back and forth. Cleveland, Atlanta, yes, Baltimore, Buffalo, which is great, which they won that game outright, which I called. Washington, New Orleans. But again, 11th ranked Miami defense at this point. However, the question now becomes, are the Dolphins at their peak market-wise, and is it time to sell? I think from a spread perspective, it probably is time to sell, honestly. Under a touchdown at 2.5, though, is different. I was seeing more 3s when I was looking. Yeah, so as we see, there was some movement. That was back a couple days ago, but actually has been sitting more than 2.5. So maybe I'm just out of my market game. Haven't been paying too much attention, that's on me. But let's see, is there a flat 2? No, there's not. So it really is a 2.5 market. I can see this being either way because the Jets are definitely getting a bit more respect in the market after beating Atlanta, though it is Kirk Cousins and the Falcons are one of the joking stocks. We'll talk about them in a bit here. But with how good Miami's defense has been in the Jets again, just still horrible. Like, just to even do a little bit of like showcasing, let's do up to week 7 for Miami's D and how bad they were. We all know what it was like to start the season here, like the biggest joke of all. Like, literally going from 31st to 11th now in EPA per play on D. Tyrod Taylor, like, yes, did make some plays, ran into touchdown, had a passing touchdown. AD Mitchell was back and looking good. And I'm mad because I talked about AD first touchdown, didn't talk about any time last week, so we didn't get in on that. So, there's a billion bets I'll miss, so I'm not really actually mad. But this is a really interesting one. Waddle 185 here at FanDuel. I'm surprised FanDuel has the best price, but that's interesting to me. Quick touchdowns, like AD still at 250. Like the Miami, their defense though has improved in the run game mostly because they're back to RBDSM real quick here. Dropback success rate, they're still 29th. Dropback EPA, they're still 25th. So while the defense, again, as a unit has improved, it has been a ground game product. Not like the Jets have a quarterback to take so much advantage of it. AD Mitchell, let's just really look at the numbers of targets now that he's a Jet. Games with players, Tyrod Taylor. 42, 102 piece, 9.5 targets. This is a WR1 against a bad secondary, getting priced at 3-1 at Hard Rock. Jake was here. I hope you'd be able to lock that in because he's got the Hard Rock going in Florida. If you're in, I think Jersey has Hard Rock. And 1 or 2 other states, definitely bet that. But I like AD Mitchell to score. And gun to head here, I think that this is a bit too light on Miami, but I can see, like, from a market perspective, why it's come down from 3 to 2.5. And it really is a situation where it's like, don't want to give the Jets 3. But I don't know. I think the market sometimes, especially, like, I'm not saying I'm smarter than the market. That's nowhere near what this comment's going to come off. What I'm trying to mean by this comment, it's like there's so much debate about like psychology and sports and like what matters, what doesn't matter, what can you actually price in, what can't you price in. And the Jets being the Jets is something that you just can't price in, and you just got to be able to know it. And as a New Yorker, not a fan, I think my Jets being Jets Bears coming off last week was a stereotypical Jets being the Jets, winning a game where you're not supposed to win. And then this week, I think against a, like, honestly superior opponent to even last week's opponent, is tough. And what the Dolphins have done in their career, in their Mike McDaniel era, has been beating bad teams. Yes, they had beaten Buffalo this year, but when they play a bad team, they win, they cover. So interested to see here. Low total with the weather, which always going to be tough for Tua, but all in all, not a big side here. And again, I have best bets, I promise. Just not getting up to them. This order is I'll make the order here when the games come out. Just going game by game for ease of use here. But boys, this is a fun one. Colts, Jags. Danny Dimes dealing with that injury. The Jaguars, the team I haven't been able to peg this year, I've been just wrong on. Not like I've burnt a ton of money fading them or backing them in the wrong spots or anything like that. But like again, even like last week, I was like Survivor. I'd probably lay off Jacksonville, like maybe Tennessee's live. Of course, Tennessee was live for quite literally 11 minutes of game time when they were up 3-0 after a first down stop or a first possession stop, then get smoked. But looking at what they've done, like against the Cardinals, had the Cardinals, maybe I have been burnt by them more than I think. Had the Cardinals, alternate spread -1. So I was like not really against the spread there. I could have gotten 3 earlier in the week to push there, but loser. Did not lay off this game, did not bet that game. Had the Texans here, so some working out there to be done. But just such an up and down odd season, all in all. Like some really great wins over Kansas City, over Los Angeles, some really terrible losses over or close games, I should say. Not really losses, being the very close game against LV, which they do pull out. This is one where it's like, what are your thoughts on the market, right? Like, what are your thoughts on where the situation sits? And this is going to be, I guess, we'll dive into it more. But where I sit when it comes to this, not just matchup, but the AFC South, is give me all the Houston Texans you're selling. I'll buy all the Houston Texans you're selling in the South because the Colts are flawed. And Jake and I have talked about this at lengths. And I bought into the Colts early on, and it worked. I still believe they were real. It was true. But now, again, with the issues to the offensive line, Daniel Jones' injury, the now Sauce Gardner injury, he is doubtful, which is tough. Expected to miss some more time. Even Kenny Moore with an illness on the injury report, that's also tough. If they have no Kenny Moore, no Sauce Gardner, that's 2 of their top 4 defensive backs right there not playing. I think that the Colts are a team that might have just peaked too early. Could be seen as lazy analysis, but it's just true. Like they were at the pinnacle at what week was it? By week. I don't even know what week that is, but late August, early November, at kind of their pinnacle, lose to the Steelers. And it's been just a whirlwind of L's, especially off last week's loss to the Texans as favorites still. And then Jacksonville, as we talked about, some of their bad losses, some of their good wins as well. This is a team that they're so just irritating to bet on because of Trevor Lawrence, but he has some games where if he doesn't need to do everything, he looks pretty solid. There's some games where he throws the ball directly to their team, and you're like, have you ever played football before? I'm going to have to make a gun-to-head selection on this one, and I'm going with Jacksonville as home dogs. Now, I think that this is absolutely fairly priced, and there's like no edge here, and I haven't bet it just yet. By the time we circle back Sunday, there'll be a different conversation all in all. But I think Jacksonville at this point is arguably the better football team. Now, if we're doing Colts, Jags, Texans, again, give me all your Texans AFC, AFC South, and honestly, maybe a little sprinkle on the full conference there. But Jaguars defense, I was not really giving them credit, but like Jake's been calling it out. Like, still, this is week 7 through 14, still doing well, upper echelon of teams, full season. Even if you take a step back here, still top 8. Their run defense has been where they've thrived. 12th in rush EPA, 2nd in rush success rate. But even their dropback EPA has been a lot better overall. And as much as I did talk shit a couple weeks back about the Jacoby Myers trade, not because of his inability to help them now, but more so about like why is this team going all in? Like they're not winning shit. Still agree with or believe that take that I gave out, but I guess like the concept of the AFC being so wide open, which was true then, but like I just wasn't really ready to believe it. Then KC stacks a couple more losses, Buffalo stacking L's, the Colts stacking L's, the Bengals, of course, out of the picture, the Ravens stacking L's. He's really added a great element to this past game. So now let me Let me pull him up just to show you kind of like what it's really been from a like target share perspective. Where's Mr. Myers? There he is. It's really been great. JT first TD. I mean, Wolfcado. I will look at the price, but if you want to bet a 4-1 first TD, no shaming for me by any means. But I like to get my like 5-1 bare minimum, but like 10-1 plus on those. But Trevor Lawrence. Let's look at what this target shares really look like. Refilter. Trevor. It's really been great. It's honestly like good for them. Coming. I mean, games with Trevor Lawrence is funny because the filter is games with Trevor Lawrence, but doesn't necessarily mean on his team. That's why that Jaguars game shows up. He was definitely still a Raider there, but targets a game. Getting this outlier, getting acclimated 3, 6, 6, 6. I think this is not just like, oh, he's hitting his capacity there. I think that they've kind of found something. And then no Sauce Gardner, injury alerts to again Kenny Moore. I think the Jaguars at this point, like, I don't think I'm selling too low on the Colts. I think there's definitely an argument to be made in the market that like you're getting the Colts at a discount for a team that's been so good. But I think it's the opposite, where like the wheels have fallen off the bus, and I think that it's not just like, oh, we're gonna fix it like we would expect to happen to like the Chiefs, which is done in the past, not happening this year, but Chiefs, I guess, still do have time. The JT first tutty plus 305. Well, I mean, brother, I'm not shaming if you want to lock that in. But for my taste on the fun I like to have on first tuds, I'm not in on that. But I think I like the Jaguars here, but definitely do support debates there on like the market being like, yo, like, Eric, what do you mean, bro? Like the Colts are a better team and now we're getting a discount. I could see the argument, but I think that the argument I'm standing on here is that the wheels are falling off, and that's just going to lead to more issues for the overall team rather than like quick fix, get it together here. Seahawks, Falcons. Falcons off a loss. Seahawks had the pleasure of dominating Mr. Max Brosmer. Definitely like Brian Thomas yards. I mean, I'll take a look at it quickly before we dive in here. How low are we getting it at now? 48.5. I mean, gets Tennessee, nada, but Jacoby Myers did what he had to do there. Some decent ground game as well. Parker Washington's good player. What's the other guys? Brenton Strange getting involved there. As a Brian Thomas like dynasty owner, I'm just so upset about the rise and the fall. And like let's see his targets. I mean, it's still 7 a game, but like we're seeing like a pretty significant dip from the early season, just like massive share outputs. But again, if the Colts secondary is that banged up, like if BTJ does put things together, it's not like the talent disappeared. That's not the question. Could be a pretty nice scenario, all in all. But the Falcons have the Seahawks have the pleasure of Mr. Max Brosmer. The market derives ratings that Ben Baldwin always puts out. I love those ratings for 2 reasons. One, because so many people that don't understand what that means are like debating things in like the comments or like in the replies, where all he's doing is just like using the market, which we know and love, and based on what the market is saying, is just showing what the ratings are. And I'll pull up the tweet here. Week 13. So this is this week, but like based on last week. Objective and correct NFL power ratings, market derived. Rams number 1, even after that loss against Carolina. And right there, you got Seattle number 2, which I think is beyond fair. I think this is like objective. This is the market telling you what they think. And again, market fantastic source of truth. Philly, even KC still there, and Philly after that L. That Atlanta in this completely bad territory, because as we know, this is a 7-point spread on the road for the Seahawks here, laying it. Where I think we're finally going to see, I'll just click it right here. I mean, if we have a 6.5 at a good price, I'm just going to add that to the slip right now, which we do. No 6 though. Kirk Cousins is a statue. We know that. Always has been. Post Achilles injury, it's gotten worse. Seattle's going to just dominate them up front. I mean, the Falcons O-line is pretty good. Looking like another potential London miss, unfortunately. I mean, London is just a freaking dog. How do they have the firepower The answer is they don't. Of course, Bijan, dog, technically questionable, but did not practice today. London, not like a vet, but like he is a guy where based on his rapport, his status in the league, where like I could see him just practicing Friday and being good to play on a Sunday if the doctors clear and everything like that. Um, the Seahawks, they're going to get so much pressure here. We can even again look. I know that it's not like the Falcons have been allowing a shit ton of pressure like that all year long. I mean, actually doing a very good job in that department, but they're playing a D line like Seattle, which they haven't really faced by any means at all. Jets no D line, Saints no D line, Carolina no D line, Indy decent but no, Patriots no D line, Miami no D line, Niners no D line, Buffalo no D line, did no D line, Carolina like it's push right there. I think the Seahawks are somehow still being priced as like a bit of like a tweener team, though. Again, the market is telling us that they are rated right now as the second best team in football. I don't think it's. I guess what I'm saying is that just hasn't moved enough because Seattle, I think, can like have a game where Kirk Cousins, he's not moving, he's not making plays. We hit on Kirk Cousins under half a rush yard last week, which is a potential printer all in all. And I think now that we have great conditions for Seattle and Co. in the Dome in Atlanta, even if Darnold doesn't play his best. And I saw some videos of how the Vikings with great DC Brian Flores played the JSN. They literally threw two DBs at him every single time. Everywhere he went, there were two DBs being thrown in his direction. And while I do think Raheem Morris is a good DC, I think you can't really replicate that. And even though Shaheed hasn't really done anything, Torrey Horton's been banged up. The run game is still good enough, and Seattle is going to just continue to win on the defensive side of the ball. And if things do click and you're letting letting JSN run rampant, all in all, I think that that's just like a really big recipe for disaster here. Because while the Falcons metrics, I mean, we'll go full. Let's keep going to like week 7 here. Defensively, haven't been like abysmal or anything like that. It's just, I mean, they kind of have been. Where are they? Where's the dirty birds? Am I blind? Where is a Falcon? Pick your logo. There they are, 21st. I mean, that's not going to do it. And then if you go back to offense here, we're going to have some Penix in this mix, but even with Kirk thrown into the mix here, no London. I mean, this offense is why can't I find a Falcon? Middle of the pack in both things against a team that is a Super Bowl caliber talent overall, offensively, and more importantly, defensively. I think 6.5 still, like, we're getting spreads that are large. They covered 11.5 last week against Brosmer in his first start. Obviously, difference between Brosmer and the Vikings and Kirk Cousins, but I don't think it's that big of a difference. I really do think Seattle at 6.5 is a bit of a discount here. Let's keep rocking. Oh, actually, we haven't looked at touchdowns. What am I doing? Quick look at Thais. And then we'll talk the final 1 p.m. Quick look at the touchdown odds. Algier, we hit on him in a nice parlay we hit on Sunday. We had Algier anytime in that. JSN, chalk as can be. London, getting some prices, but we don't know if he'll play. Bijan, I don't like at that point. Cup, Acre, Shaheed, I'm out on. So nothing sticking out to me. I know Pitts had a big breakout day, but again, against the Jets, I don't think that's anything to write home about. Mooney down the field, I think they're going to have a really tough time pushing the ball. And this total at 44.5, I think is high, very high. Actually, very much so like this under as well. Because, like, yes, we've seen Seattle's defense like do enough to put up points and just dominate. Like, I think I do find it hard to think it's going to be like a 31-14 game where the Seahawks won score 31, except their defense can definitely get them 7, if not 14. And the Falcons putting up 14, I think, is tough. So I think that 44.5. Let's check that liquidity quickly. Because at even money, we'll see what a 45.5 is. I mean, 45, maybe at MGM or something. Yeah, that's no bueno. Let's pull up the liquidity here quickly because I might actually bet this right this second. I might bet this right now. We'll see how much liquidity there is in market. $500, so not a ton where I want to like give it out and say that. With that being said, am I going to take a little bit of that right this second? Uh, the answer is yes, I'm going to, honestly. Um, Feel free to tail on Novig, best odds on the market. If you don't have Novig, use promo code BetSmart. You get 25 free dollars for signing up with promo code BetSmart. It's an amazing must-use sports book if available in your state, which is available in like almost, I think, 35 plus states, even if betting isn't legal in your state. Um, where is it? So I'm betting it right now to get some liquidity. Not a ton. I'll leave a lot for the boys here, but I am in on that under 44 and a half. Beautiful. Final 1 p.m. game, my Commanders against the Vikings. So my commies off the bye, Terry's healthy, Mariota played really, really well against Denver. Defense that Jake and I debate a lot about, and I actually want to. This is a curiosity check here. I haven't looked at what their numbers have been over the last couple of weeks, but I am curious because a defense I still think is great, but the number wise, I mean, 18th in total EPA per play, drop back success rate. There was some Surtain missed time as well, so I don't want to discount that. Though Terry did score that game time touchdown right in Surtain's face. Where's the Broncos? 16th rush EPA. 16th. Oh no, didn't calculate. Rush EPA 16th also actually. Success rate on the ground 8th. So a defense that I think is still a really great unit, but might. I mean, of course, like Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, like it still is a good unit. Has had some games. Commies did put up some great offense on them. Jaden Daniels might be good to go. I am going to go on the limb. I haven't read any reports that he's not going to play because they said they're really targeting next week. But he has been practicing lightly. We'll read the report right now. Optimistic he'll get a lot of reps in practice last week, but added that he's going to take it all the way through Friday in terms of the QB's Week 14 status. Because he's Jaden Daniels, because they're 3-8, that to me is closer to like 45% he'll start than 55% that he'll start. Now, my opinion doesn't mean shit. We'll find out sooner than later if he is playing. But has not been cleared for contact, and they're playing a Brian Flores defense. On the flip side here, we have the JJ McCarthy news. Doesn't have concussion symptoms anymore and should emerge from the protocol for head and injuries if he practices fully Wednesday. I'm going to do a quick Google. I guess I can Google or Twitter, but I'm going to do a quick Twitter search and see what McCarthy's status was in practice today. To me, though, either way, even if it's Jaden McCarthy, even if it's Jaden Brosmer, even if it's McCarthy, Mariota, Brosmer, Mariota, McCarthy. He was officially 5 minutes ago from Schefter. Full participant in practice. So I think while you don't need to bet anything right this second because we'll find out injury news, gun to my head, I think it's going to be Marcus Mariota versus JJ McCarthy on Sunday. Again, doesn't matter what 4 quarterbacks are going. My best bet for one of my best bets for Sunday is Vikings Commanders under 42.5. Now, Brian Flores is one of the better defensive coordinators in football. We've talked about them all week long and what he's able to do against Seattle and really make it so JSN was getting doubled at all times. The Commanders don't have any real threats like that, but the Commanders want to run the football anyway. Running football means a lot of ticking clock, and that's going to lead to a lot of movement overall, leading to a potential under. On the Viking side, Max Brosmer is abysmal, but we can say that he's probably not playing. JJ McCarthy is abysmal, so even if it is McCarthy, that's not an upgrade. Now, all in all, these are 2 teams that I think will have more success if they're trying to run the football. And the Commanders, now that Dan Quinn has been running the defense, has been a bit better in those 2 games, though one off a bye week against Bo Nix and one against Miami in Madrid. So you have all those other factors of travel, delay, overseas games always being a bit lower scoring. But seeing these teams having like a shootout style, even Mariota replicating his great performance off the bye on Sunday. And again, even if Jaden plays, which I think is unlikely, I still think this number is too low. The only thing stopping me from betting it right this second on stream is the fact that if Jaden plays, I think we'll see this go up to 43.5. And then it's going to go back down. And the second it goes up, I'm buying. And I'm going to be monitoring for that news so I can lock in immediately. But under 42.5 for Vikings Commanders is my best bet. And I'm hoping that it gets up to 43.5 and I can lock it in. But at 42.5, regardless of the two quarterbacks that are playing, I do think it's going to be a under spot. One of my favorite bets, even at 43, 117, a little bit too much juice to bet it at right now because we still need to see what goes on with Jaden. But doesn't matter if Jaden's playing. I hope he plays, honestly, just to give the total a quick boost. And we'll check on Sunday. Well, I'll be streaming Sunday. You guys can say, Eric, you were wrong. Jaden's playing. Total went to 44.5. It's sitting there. You're talking dead numbers. And I'll be sitting there saying, I fucked up. Or on Sunday, we'll be seeing a 41.5 still with Jaden or with Mariota. And you'll say, Eric, you got to guess a great number. So it'll be fun regardless. But I like the under in this game. One of my best bets of the week, under 43, under 42.5. I'm okay with as well. Vikings, Commanders under. That being said, do want to look at touchdown odds because despite how bad it's been, if there is a week for Jettas to score, even with the new Commanders defensive protocols now with Quinn calling the plays, not seeing odds on multiple books, so not going to be helpful. But if Jettas is sitting at this 185 range, even at 165, I know he was like 200 plus last week in Seattle, which nowhere close. He had his worst game of his entire career, and not Justin Jefferson's fault. Jettas is an absolute touchdown bet. And I'm interested also in Addison's line because commies do get beat down the field as well. Unless Addison knew. Oh, there he is. If Addison's at like 250 as well, I think I'm betting both receivers on the Vikings. Even though I like the under, still there doesn't mean there can't be value in touchdown scores having good odds. Absolutely interested in both receivers at prices like that. We'll see how they end up going when they come out with the quarterbacks playing and the odds, but under love in this game and the big boys, Addison and Jefferson. If you're telling me what the Commanders are going to do, if they're going to win this football game, I mean, this spread has just moved around big time. Washington now 2.5-point dogs. I guess the market earlier in the week was pricing Jaden in, and that's all you need to know from a market perspective, that they're not expecting Jaden to play. But I think the commies shouldn't have been favored in the first place anyway, right? So I actually do think that the Vikings, actually now at minus 122, I think it's a different story, and this is why numbers matter so much in football, where I'm actually not going to bet it, but like I should have bet the Vikings as a dog when I could. And I know I said I'm going to wait, but because of the spread move like that, I'm actually going to bet this right now. Let's look at how much liquidity there is in profit at 43, even at 117, because that's still better. Best price in market technically for the under. Let's see where that's at. It's actually the 42.5 at Novig. So there isn't even a ton of liquidity, $45. Like I wouldn't call that a best bet. But let's go back to Novig here. And where is it? Where are the commies? I'm blind. I am. How much liquidity? Only $51. Oh, actually, no. $1,100. So forget some of the stuff I said. Best bet for this game on Sunday, Minnesota Vikings, Washington Commanders, under 42.5. I don't care who's playing quarterback for the Commanders, even if it's Jaden. I think it's actually the thing that's giving us a better price because the spread is flipped. That's telling me Jaden is not playing. And JJ McCarthy, if he plays, he's abysmal. Does not make a difference to me if it's McCarthy or Brosmer. I don't see these teams scoring touchdowns on the defensive side of the ball. The under is absolutely one of my best bets for the week. Sorry about that. If you're not using Novig or ProfitX, you guys gotta get into it. It's promo code BETSMART will get you free cash on Novig, $25 free dollars. The odds are best in market. Often there's a really great menu to place action on. There are parlays, there are promos that they run. It is a fantastic platform, legal in more states than not, especially if it's a state that's Gambling is not legal you can trade on Novig, and I highly recommend it. So if you're watching on Twitter, actually, or on YouTube, you can just click the link in the description, use promo code BetSmart, but you get a free $25 for signing up on Novig, and I highly recommend it to get both the bets we placed today, the Cowboys plus 3.5 and this Commanders Vikings under, both best odds by far on Novig. So always the move there. On to the 4 p.m.s, Broncos Raiders. Broncos laying 7.5 here. I've been so big on fading Las Vegas from a spread perspective, even with big spreads like we did last week, or we talked about. I didn't end up pulling trigger, so I can't give myself too much credit, but I did say, like, Jake and I were on other sides. I was like, bro, no, like, how the Raiders scoring points, I think it's the same conversation. I really do. I don't think there's any difference in the thought process there whatsoever. The Broncos, obviously, Bo Nix is not great, but they find ways to win football games. And, like, yes, you can make the argument 7.5 might be too many points, but I don't think so whatsoever. We did see this drop from 8.5 to 7.5, so there was a little bit of buying early in the week on the Raiders. A bit of movement here. Even got to 9, but then got bought back quickly. I don't have a ton of strong thoughts on this game, except that, like, Las Vegas, like, I wouldn't bet them. If you gave me $100 to say, hey, bet the Raiders for me, I would just put it in my pocket, or I'd light it on fire, because that's probably the same difference at this point. But jokes aside, though, I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. We'll look at touchdown props quickly, but I'm not interested in anything Las Vegas related by any means at all. In Denver, though, I'm also not interested in backing them at a margin of 7.5 with Bo Nix. They have some games where they won by margin. Of course, he's their QB1, but I mean, looking at beat Washington by 1, beat the Chiefs, but like real margin victories: Dallas, Philly, but 4 is not real margin. So Dallas and Cincy and Tennessee, which is Tennessee, only real margin victories. And yes, the Raiders are a team that probably aren't going to be able to compete, and you can beat by margin, but I don't think so there. So Rams Cardinals, another interesting one. Rams losing outright to the Panthers in a game where Matt Stafford had his blow-up game in an MVP conversation with then Drake May had that great game on Monday against obviously a bad Giants team, but now the MVP race is getting a lot crazier. And speaking of, I do want to just pull up Novig quickly, because I am curious, because they do have some future odds. I'm in New York, so we don't have player future markets, believe it or not. I'm sure some people are like, yeah, I know it sucks. Other people in other states are probably like, what the hell do you mean you can't bet on MVP in New York? I do think you can next year, though. I think there was at least debating if you could or not. But either way, I want to see what Novig has, because I cannot pull up FanDuel and look at the odds. There's no guarantee that Novig even has liquidity on those as well, but I am curious to see how it has moved, if so. Futures, season awards, MVP. Even there's no liquidity, so May is now 111, Stafford 115. So I'd assume the market is relatively around that price as well. But did not mean to click Bears Packers, so we're not on that game yet, though I do have thoughts on that. Rams Cardinals. So the Cardinals with Brissett, they're so interesting because we see Brissett breaking completion percentage number or completions in a game numbers, putting some high flying games. But the Cardinals are like your boy in the bar at 3 a.m. trying to find somebody they can't close. All these one score losses, I guess really not as going back earlier in the season, all these one score losses. And while I am not a Kyler Murray fan at all, I actually think Kyler Murray stinks. It's not like Brissett is any better at this point. Maybe he does provide more upside from a fantasy perspective for Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. Is it translating to wins? No, because as again, somebody who had the Cardinals last week, shitting bricks, almost end up covering, but with tough one. Even when the market went against me, I had 4, so I had a bad number, close 4.5, but still covered. Before that, against the Jaguars, I had an alternate them -1. They lose an OT. The Cardinals are just incapable. They're always going to be the candidate for that backbreaking pick and the fumble and some of the bad things. They like play football. They don't even want to win. They play football like the goal of the game is to lose by 3 points. While the Rams, on the other hand, best team in football from a market-derived perspective. And yes, they just lost to the Panthers, but that was like the game where a guy like Stafford doesn't turn the ball over ever, is finally having, a little bit of a regressionary game, and he still has an insane TD INT ratio. Still one of the best quarterbacks going right now, and still the second favorite for the MVP. You're going to have that one kind of crappy game, especially on the road, bad weather. Just kind of all happened at once rather than scattered out through like a 2-week period and such. Now, the Rams are definitely capable of winning by margin, and this defense is still very good. But I do think Arizona is going to be able to be like competitive at least. So, gone to head here, I actually do like the Cardinals against the spread, but that's not something that will be making my card. But I would be hard pressed to believe that the Rams put up back-to-back defensive stinkers and lose back-to-back games. I wouldn't go as far as to say like maybe they're broken and things are going poorly. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. But I do think that the Cardinals can keep this one within a touchdown, which is all you need for the spread, of course. And TDs, nothing price-wise sticking out to me at all. Honestly, obviously, Tay is cooked odds-wise at this point, but deservedly so. I mean, this is the range he sits at. Books might be expecting a bit of regression or pricing-wise because it's been like 150 for the last like 5 weeks. It really hasn't like gone up to like the running back range, which I don't think you can do with a receiver, because for Tay, it comes down to like just catching that 1 yard slant or fade. He can still score from distance, but it still really is that, again, 1 yard goal line, 1 to 5 yard line range, which you can't really guarantee is going to lead to like receptions and whatnot. So Tay is the closest thing you have to a guarantee. So do think this one will be within a touchdown. I actually do think the Cardinals are a lean, and we'll see how it goes by Sunday. But I think Arizona can do enough, and the Rams defense I do think is slightly overrated, and not just overreacting from last week. I just think generally speaking it is slightly overrated because there are guys like Emmanuel Forbes who's been having an amazing season, but not to discredit Mr. Forbes there, but I watched him in Washington. He was horrific. And Washington's coaching was terrible, and new scheme, new system, new DCs, new talent around you, et cetera, et cetera. But I still am hard-pressed to believe that all of a sudden he's like a lockdown great corner or anything like that. I don't believe that actually at all. And I think that some of the flaws we saw last week are more indicative of like what he probably is on a defense. So it could be a net positive all in all, but overall, I don't think so. Final 3 games: Bears, Packers. Everything in me wants to just bet the Packers -6.5 because, again, market-wise, like we know how lucky the Bears have been. Even their own head coach is calling out how bad their passing game has been. Subtle shot at Williams, though not really, because he is also mentioning how like receivers aren't getting deep enough in their routes, and they're having some like slipping and falling and things like that. Sorry, that light's killing me. But I do think that the Packers are a Super Bowl contender legitimately, while the Bears just like aren't. And I think we've all seen by now that if the Bears lose this game, they go from first in the NFC to like 7th or something, which is NFC, man. It's awesome. But the Packers are the real deal. I think that they're absolutely the real deal. I think the 6.5 is a bit of a discount, honestly. Ben Johnson deserves all the flowers. I think he actually is already in contention for top 10 coach, and that's on the low end. Honestly, I think you could really make an argument that he's a top 5 head coach in football. I'll say 10 just for, not to make the hottest take in the world, because I don't even think 10 is not a hot take. 5 is arguably not a hot take, depending on who you talk to. But I think that just when you go from talent right now, how it stands right now, Packers and Bears talent-wise, that the Packers are the better football team, which is the 6.5 point spread. That's not a hot take. But I think that like win by margin, better football team. I think the Packers are absolutely there. And yes, Caleb's done a great job avoiding sacks, being under pressure, making, I wouldn't say throws on the run, because he does miss a lot of throws on the run and he misses throws in the pocket. But I think that this Packers defense is more than good enough and more than legit enough there to have this be the come down to earth thing for Chicago. Jake and I have talked about it. We were both dead wrong on it being on Friday against the Eagles. And I think there were some signs that we missed that we should have considered before we pulled some trigger there. I mean, he was all over them. I didn't end up betting the Eagles against the spread, but I did think that was the come down to earth game. But I think that this Packers game is, and if they win outright the Bears, or not just cover, but win outright, then I guess I'll tip the cap there. Couldn't figure out how the Bears are winning games, and I looked at how they lead the league in turnover differential. Yep. That's been the point. That's been the talking point. Number one in turnover differential. They're not turning it over on offense. They're getting ridiculous amounts of turnovers on defense. That is variance. That is not sustainable, especially because over the course of the season, right? Like, think about what we were talking about with the Colts earlier. I am of the belief, and I could be wrong, of course, that the Colts, the wheels are just completely falling off, and that's that. Like, that's the situation. Now, they peaked too early. For the Bears, you can make the same argument that they peaked too early as well, and the wheels just haven't begun to fall off. And like, now is the time in the stretch run for them to possibly fall off. They've had led the league in turnover differential, and they've been able to like win these games that are very close margin wise, one score games as well. But the debate and the question is, like, can you really do that over 17 games and then over 4 more or 3 more if they're number 1 seed in the NFC? I mean, they'll play 3 more games, but over 20 games, can you sustain these unsustainable statistical things over 20 games? And the probable answer is no, right? It really is the likely answer. And if there is a week for it to start coming down and unfurling, I think against a legitimate Super Bowl contender in the Packers, well, not like the Eagles aren't, and they deserve so much credit for what they did to the Eagles, running the ball down their throats, playing bully football, playing man football. Again, shout out to Ben Johnson, man. But I think the Packers at this point are proving they're a different animal. And of course, we had them, against the spread and money line on Thanksgiving. And yes, they own the lines there a bit. And as Big Cat would say, the Bears are 1-0 against the Packers in 2025. But I think after this one, it'll definitely be 1-1 and no cover in this one. And I feel the same way, brother. I think a lot of people feel the same way, right? And if they run this magical run of winning all these turnover margins and just being this somehow elite team impervious to regression, and the Bears win the Super Bowl, I'm not a Bears hater. I'll tip my cap and I'll say fraud, but W, Super Bowl. You can never take a Super Bowl away from anybody. So that's the wind of it all, though, for me on this one. And quick TD check here, just to see some of the odds before we get into the final 2 games here. Jacobs chalk as all hell. The run game, I mean, now at this point, which one's going to get the goal line touches? Swift or Monangai? That is fully dealer's choice at this point. Both of them got in last week. Christian Watson at the WR1 I do really love, but these odds are like 20 cents lower than they were last week in arguably an easier matchup. So makes sense that they're lower, but I think CW as a WR1 we're big fans of. Nothing sticking out to me now. A bunch of things not fully widely available, though the main guys at this point kind of are. Though Romeo back. I mean, at these prices, I like Watson over Romeo, so I'll add Watson there. But let's wrap up with 2 prime times. I always stream before Monday night's game, so I'll keep that one brief. But this is a big game for obvious reasons, and also for me specifically for the reason that I bet on the Texans to win the AFC South before last week at 7-1. Now, I didn't line shop. I just had the bonus bets that we got from the Christian Watson TD on Thanksgiving, longest touchdown. Shout out to DK and shout out to Christian Watson. Pulling up my open slips on DK because we got $153, I want to say, for that. And I used 1 on the Texans to win the AFC South, but I bet that after the week. So those odds are probably not great. But I have the Texans at 7-1 to win the South. I think I said that wrong. I've Texans to win the full AFC 13-1 and Texans to win the South at 7-1. This is the make or break for the Texans to 1, even make the playoffs, 2, to keep their South hopes alive because, of course, the Jaguars Colts play, and they play again this season. And the Chiefs, of course, are in Chiefs territory where they're 6-6, and they're on the outside looking in, and like even just winning this game and winning out isn't might not even be enough for KC because they lost to Los Angeles and they lost to Jacksonville. Josh Simmons out on the IR. They're starting tackle. Will Anderson questionable with the chest. Now that's news. These are both news to me, honestly. Danico Autry only an hour ago, so probably news to a lot of people. But Danico Autry and Will Anderson being questionable, no bueno. But this Texans defense, and even Woody wasn't spotted at practice. I don't know. This Texans defense, especially against a banged up O line of KC, again, Josh Simmons out, Trey Smith's questionable, inside interior as well. But the Texans with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson on the outside, but even Danico Autry on the outside. Tim Settle, we saw in the report, he's just a run stopper, but he's a good player. He was on the Commanders. Dare I say the Mahomes reign not over. Dynasty's not over. The Mahomes reign isn't over. Does the Mahomes reign take a 12-month hiatus? I think it might. I think the Texans are so live here. And I know what happened in that playoff game when they played here a couple of years ago where the Texans started off with that massive lead and the Chiefs blew them out head-to-head in the last couple of games. All KC. Not that that matters. But I haven't bet this. I'm not going to just bet this now or anything like that. So, like, again, take some things with a bit of grain of salt there. But I definitely think that the Chiefs are live here. I think they definitely can win this football game. The Texans are live here, can definitely win this football game and can definitely cover. This defense is no freaking joke. And yes, Mahomes is a great equalizer. Yes, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy are dogs, and the Chiefs offense are going to be in like really good positions and spots. But I don't necessarily believe that the Chiefs are done. And I just want to take one quick second here because we bet that under in Atlanta, but I didn't put it in my tracker. So before I forget, hold on. Quick digression here. So I know we bet that, right? Yeah, we did. I forgot where. I mean, I can watch stream back. It was on Novig, naturally. Okay. Well, oh, it's because the liquidity was low, but it's for tracker. 500 is still worth it for tracker, though. And please feel free to take some of that and bet it at Novig. Don't just be like, oh, Eric, I love your analysis. But I see a minus 105 at whatever. The best price is even money at Novig. Unless you're not in Novig State, you have no excuse to not bet that. Let me get to the tracker quickly. Okay, done. I forgot to write down the units here, but obviously for the commies, it's at we got minus 106, so 1.06 units. But let me just be thorough here while I have it. Sorry about that. And yep, I have it down. Okay. Yeah, so back to the end all be all though. I think that the Texans are definitely alive. I think that the Texans, even though Stroud's not great and this offense still has their hiccups, that the Chiefs defense we've seen all year long is nowhere near as like game wrecking as they've been in the past. And yes, I can see them providing a lot of pressure on Stroud and like sending the blitz. The Steve Spagnuolo special, selling out. But again, I do think that the Texans now finally have the playmakers. I think the emergence of Elijah Higgins has been massive. Nico is a dog. The emergence of Woody has been great. Chubb still has a bit of juice left in that tank. And even like the Christian Kirk, Jalen Noel, even though those guys are like not too targeted, especially Christian Kirk, and of course, Dalton Schultz, that they do have the overall weaponry to honestly make a run in this AFC that's open. And I think it does start with them having another statement win against Buffalo, statement win against the Colts, statement win against the Chiefs, I think is absolutely on the table. And pains me to say it as somebody who's been a massive Chiefs believer, because I could not be. All this being said, if this somehow gets to like KC like -2, which I don't think is possible, I would bet the Chiefs because 2 is very different than market. But at market 3.5, strong lean to Houston. And by the time we're talking on stream Sunday, chopping it up, I'm sure I'll have that locked in or different thoughts on the price based on what it is. But at market, Chiefs plus 3.5. Last but not least, Philly Chargers. Now, the whole question is about Justin Herbert and his hand. Because of that, hard to analyze this game, honestly. And I stream every Monday before the game. So by that point on Sunday and Monday streams, we'll know if I bet this game from a side perspective by Sunday. Everybody's on stream Sunday, and Sunday streams are the best. Everyone here can attest to that. We'll know. So I'm not going to sit here and honestly like belabor any points all in all, because I don't think that we have enough information, honestly. So because of that, put in this charger. Because of that, hard to say, but Chargers over 20.5 points, D-Vigging to Penny and Bovada. So like I just said there, AC, bro, I just don't think that there's enough info. Like that could be one of the best bets you make, because Herbert gets ruled in and the line goes to 23.5 and you have 3 points of line value, having a massive expected value bet. Like, who doesn't want that? But this very easily could be Trey freaking Lance, and that number will be 15.5. So I just think it's too early to pull trigger. Some resident Charger fans that I know and love are very optimistic. Herbert had an injury to his hand, and then very similar injury, and he played, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe last year. If you put a gun to my head and said, is Herbert playing? I think the answer probably is yes, but I think we're also in a pricing situation now where the market doesn't know. And I think that if he plays, we're going to get this closer to 3. I mean, excuse me, to like 1.5. Honestly, I really do. I think this is like a tweener line. Jake and I talk about a lot when it comes to injury stuff. And I do think, honestly, AAC, if you're just betting this from D-Vigging and EV, then like obviously don't even listen to what I'm about to say. But if you're like, yo, I love the Chargers, right? Like I think the Chargers are good. I think that this 3-110 at Caesars right now is the better bet if you want to be on the Chargers. Like market aside, obviously market is king, but like, when it comes to spreads, sometimes you just put your nuts on the table. If it's like, yo, like I want to bet the Chargers in some capacity, I think you are better off betting the 3 right now, because this 3-110 will absolutely not be there come game time if Herbert's playing. Yes, it could go the other way, but not going to say it's safer. That's definitely not the right word. But if you want the action on the Chargers, I think the 3-110 is better for the injury potential there. So that's going to wrap it up, boys. That's going to wrap it up. We'll be betting again Sunday stream, always 2 hours. Amazing streams. We hit so many amazing first touchdowns, parlays, boosts, straight bets. So those streams are definitely worth being there. I really do recommend. Quick recap. I'll do leans first. We'll start with touchdowns because pricing wise right now, tough to bet, but just pull up a book where at least at least they're not like great out there. I think Jalen Warren, DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Keon Coleman, Harold Fannin, Chris Olave, AD Mitchell, Christian Watson. They didn't show up. Maybe I didn't click them, but I also do think that Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are all great looks for anytime touchdowns. I think because the lines weren't widely available, though I don't think these prices are the best prices to bet right now, but these are guys on my radar to bet. And I'll go with the leans. Cowboys, Lions, I'll say lean or play. Lean under. Dallas plus 3.5, absolutely a play. Steelers, Ravens under, lean. Buffalo minus 4.5, lean. Browns minus 3.5, lean, but definitely not laying anything with that. Saints plus 9.5, lean. Jaguars money line, lean. Seattle minus 6.5, lean, but Seattle Falcons under 44.5 is a best bet. Commies, Vikings under 42.5, a best bet. Cardinals lean, Packers lean, Houston lean. I also think they're live on the money line. But to reiterate, for Thursday night tomorrow, I will be streaming at 7 p.m. ET before leading up to game time. So I'll use all the boosts and all the fun stuff that we do. But again, my best bet for Thursday is Dallas plus 3.5. They're going against a banged up Lions team that, yes, is going to try to run the ball 40 plus times, which is why I also do lean toward the under there. But the Cowboys offense, with the injuries now to the Lions secondary, and because of how poor of a defense they are overall, the Dallas Cowboys offense should be able to continue this amazing pace of play. I think Dallas is actually a very dangerous team heading into this final stretch of the season. I think they pull off a potential upset, but at 3.5, to me, that's an easy bet. Cowboys was 3.5. And a reiteration on my other two best bets here. Falcons Seahawks under 44.5. Kirk Cousins is a absolute statue in the pocket in the Seattle defensive front. Though the Falcons offensive line is pretty good, should be able to do enough to make Cousins uncomfortable. And I find it very hard to see Atlanta moving the football on the Seattle defense. And while Seattle's defense is capable of scoring 14, Falcons defense still is pretty good. And JSN being that one key piece, we saw what the blueprint was last week from Brian Flores. Morris is a good DC, so I think we could see some of that shutting down JSN or really slowing him down again, leading to Seattle not having a massive output on offense, but Atlanta not being able to score as well. So under 44.5, best bet. Then final best bet here for this week that we locked in already is Vikings Commanders under 42.5. Even if JD5 goes, which the market is telling us he's not going because the flip from Washington -1.5 to Minnesota -2.5. The Commanders with Mariota going against Brian Flores. First of all, they want to run the ball anyway, so the time's going to be ticking. And yes, they do some hurry-up stuff, but I don't think that's enough to get this to a higher total. And the Commanders' defense under Dan Quinn now has looked a lot better. And the Vikings, even though I do think Addison or Jefferson or even both are alive to score a touchdown, I don't see enough combinations there with time ticking on both sides for there to be more than 43 points scored. So I do love the under, boys. So that's going to wrap us up. I'll see you guys on stream tomorrow at 7 ET. I'll see if Ty's around. We'll hopefully get a little collab going. If not, I'll go solo. But appreciate you all. You guys have a great rest of your night. Make some money betting the NBA if you guys are tonight. I haven't locked anything in yet, but I'm about to take a look. Have a great one, boys. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.